Hi, this is Danny from Scott Country International, doing a comparison between two Thermion 2 scopes. In the red corner we have the XP50 PRO LRF, and in the blue corner we have the XQ50 PRO LRF. Welcome to the Night Vision Show. So here we have side by side the XQ50 on top and the XP50 below. The only visible difference, apart from the colouring of the names, is the fact that I'm using an APS-3 battery turret on this, my XP50 PRO, and the APS-2. Okay, just for those who haven't used them, simply they come off. You've got an APS-2 battery, which is a smaller battery, that's in use here. And then on the XP50, I'm using an APS-3 battery. The reason I use the bigger battery clearly is more runtime when I'm out hunting. These are both interchangeable, and both scopes, when they come, will come with an APS-3 and an APS-2 battery compartment, but it comes with an APS-2 battery. The specs itself I'll go through in a minute, comparable, but visually there's nothing different in the scopes and the build state. Sorry, some of the features I really like in this range with the LRF is the focus adjustment here. It's a real small motion, creates a lot of effect on the visual plane, and it's left and right handed, as you can see, and that's really useful, especially if you've got quarry that's very in range. And you need to quickly adjust your focus and get onto it. That's been used several times recently, actually, and it's really good. Another thing, it's a very minor thing, but it's a very effective thing, is the fact that the front cap for the front of the scope clicks in and goes flush with the mechanism. Okay, it doesn't sit pried. Some other scopes essentially have it where it sits pried and it doesn't lock in. The challenge with that, I find, is especially if you're going through cover, etc., it could catch and it could snap off. So that locks off and it sits there secure and in pried instead of being pried out. Okay, so that's it really. You know, aesthetically, yeah, they're a nice design, like a lot of the scopes nowadays on 30mm tubes, as I've said. Obviously, the block of the LRF function at the top, it adds a little bit of weight, not a great deal. But the fact that you've got a thermal scope in 30mm tube that looks pretty much like a day scope, and the weight is very comparable, is a real achievement. Okay, let's look at the tech specs. We're here to compare the Thermion 2 XP50 PRO LRF with the Thermion 2 XQ50 PRO LRF. As I alluded to earlier on, looking at them, you couldn't tell the difference at them at all. They're exactly the same shape, build and structure. What is different is what's inside. The XP50 PRO is a 640 480 17 micron sensor, giving you sub 25 millikelvin. That's your ability to see extreme variations of temperature, which comes to effect when you see the footage and the comparison and what that brings out. And then the XQ50, which is a 384 288 17 micron sensor, again sub 25 K. So both scopes have detection range up to 1800 meters, with the LRFs giving you 800 meters detection range. The base magnification on the XQ is ×3, which then subsequently gives you ×3, then it goes to ×6, and then ×12 are your 3 magnification settings. Obviously you can scroll in between each, but that's your 3 step-ups, from your 2 step-ups from your base ×3 magnification. On the XP50, it's a ×2 mag, then it goes 2, 4, 8, 16 if you go through your blocks, but obviously you can still scroll through that as well and give you your finer adjustment. So that brings me on to some uses. For example, So with the XP, you get a bigger field of view clearly because you're on ×2 magnification. And as you'll see from clip 1, when you look at clip 1, you'll see there's a red deer. Okay, it's a hind, and we're looking at her. You know, and you can see on the XP, which is the red cross, okay, as opposed to the green reticle, because the green reticle belongs to the XQ. The actual full picture, what you get, you can see behind it is the fence line where the herd is, etc. And you can see a lot more detail. Whereas the XQ, because it's ×3, you're in a bit more, and you're getting essentially the hind and the top of the field she's in, but not actually getting the top fence line and the herd. So what? Well, you know, from a safety perspective, if you wanted to see that whole picture, the XP gives you that. So if you're shooting in bigger areas, it really does give you a bigger field of vision, which is, you know, critical in some grounds for safety, especially if you've got big open ground. And that ability to see everything in detail. And I think you'll also, if you look at the background as well on that footage, you can see the detail in the trees and all the stuff at range. And that herd is about 320 meters away, 317 to 320 meters away. And you can see the detail of the whole area around it, really crystal clear. But anyway, going on to the actual picture itself, with that doe, that hind, I'll have a quick look in here. You'll see, you know, you can see the outline. It's a clear cut picture. And then what you're going to find is when you zoom in to ×6, you're going to get a bit of distortion, because clearly when you're zooming into things, you start to lose that crystal, that clear picture. And it starts to pixelate a little bit. And then on ×12 on the hind, you're getting a bit closer in on her. But you clearly wouldn't be using ×12 magnification on a deer that close. I'm just showing you for, you know, the range of what it goes through from a 3, 6 and 12 steps. You know, but when we come on to some of the other stuff later on some other clips, you'll see the benefits of having that ability to zoom into ×12, especially for shot placement. Okay, some things also to note, please. So remember, the imagery you're seeing on the screen does not represent what you're actually seeing through your eyepiece, because that's been not only taken from a small inch and a bit screen that you can see through, okay, that gives you all the detail to your eye, has now been taken, compressed through data transfer, and then uploaded onto a screen and been stretched to fit for you to see on YouTube. And you could be looking at this on a 42-inch television, and it's not going to give you the detail. So it's really important that you get a chance to go and see these things at the game fairs, at a show or a shop or a demo or nighttime demo or night vision demo, and see the stuff work properly. That's the only time you're really going to get a feel and understand how good these things are. Okay, so on clip 2, you'll see that I've got the herd that I mentioned beforehand. Now that herd's out there, 317 meters out, and essentially when you're looking at it, you know, on ×2 magnification, you can clearly see all the detail of the herd and what's moving around and what's movement. And on ×3 in the XQ as well, in the same detail. Once you start stepping up magnification at that range, you're going to get a deterioration in the quality, okay? Because at the end of the day, that's over 300 meters away, and especially you've got a collective body as well. It's not like a single deer, and that's sat out. You know, so you're looking at a collective heat source as well. But you can still define each animal from itself, from, you know, individually from that herd, which just, when we talk about sub 25 MK, you know, you're starting to see the variation in all the heat source, and you can see that where it comes about, and what we're talking about is that ability to see the difference in heat. As I say, in just one big heat mass at 300 meters away, this is what we're talking about, and seeing the detail. Yeah, there's a bit of pixelation when you zoom in, but we've got to have expectation, you know, management here when you're thinking about what you're getting from a thermal scope. This is the thermal scope at 300 meters plus, okay, on a large body of deer. As you'll see from the surrounding as well, when you look at the trees and the bits and pieces around, you can see definition, etc. Obviously you see more stuff with the XP50 than you do with the XQ, but it's just really showing you that. Obviously when you zoom in on times 12 and times 16, respectively from the XQ to the XP, you are going to lose it, and it's not, I'll be honest with you, it's not a showpiece. That's not something you really want to sell and say, well, look at this, but it's just showing you that you can see it's in there. But take in consideration, as you'll see from some of the further clips, when you're looking at range at individual quarry, it's a far better feel. But it's just going to give you the feel of the scope and what it can do. So we had something close up, and then immediately what we've got is a herd at 317 to 330 meters around that kind of basis. Okay, so the third clip we had was a single row. It was 160 meters, and essentially it was just out the front. It was moving from right to left, unfortunately. So where we were in the covered with the scopes, you know, the deer were a bit aware, so we had to be very mindful of that and just basically stay where we were because of the moon state. We don't want to spook them. So essentially, you'll see it as it's walking. We'll lose the footage because of the fence, etc. All right, the rifles weren't loaded. We weren't trying to shoot anything. It was all about the scopes and seeing how the scope functioned. You'll see, and I think you'll agree, both scopes are 160 meters. That deer it's really clear, and you can see the detail, and you can see it's a row. Okay, you know, I'm not saying you're sexing, you know, in this time of year when the antlers are off, etc. But what you are able to do is by looking at it, you can see it's a roe deer. Okay, and that detail of the outline and the shape and all the rest of it is really good. And it wasn't a particularly cold night either. And with the XP, you'll see again behind it. I will go on about it. Is the quality. You've got you will see there's a heat source in the wood line. And when I was looking through my eyepiece, you know, I could see it was another deer that was moving around in there. It's going to be a bit different because of the transference, etc. But the XQ, you can see something was in there as well, but it just wasn't as clear in the depth of what you had, which is what it's all about. But that tree line is in excess of 250 meters, and you're looking at heat source inside the wood, which is pretty special. Okay, so as you'll see when we zoomed in on that 160, at times 8 on the XP, and I think I got to 6 on the XQ. You'll see for shot placement at that range, perfect, absolutely perfect. You can see exactly where you want to put your shot, and and where you want to pull that, you know, for a clean kill. You know, and we're talking deer here, not foxes. Okay, where it's got to be bang on the heart where you're trying to get a shot, or the neck, depending on how you shoot. Okay, so clip 4 was on the other side of the gate where this deer was moving. There was 3 other row, and as I said earlier on, they knew we were there, so they were a bit spooked and a bit jumpy. But now these things are at what range? I think they're looking around again 160 to 180 out to 200, so that they push on. So that grouping, essentially, you know, moving about, but you can see the detail, and the scope does really well in defining the detail and looking at it. And when you look at the back of the deer as well, you'll see the heat marking. So you'll see the where the tush is, where, you know, the back end of the doe, and you can't really see the tush, but you can see the heat, where the thicker coat is, and then where it's lighter, and where the heat's it's less insulated, so you can see more heat. That variation on that heat source, okay, again shows you that this whole sub 25 mk. So you're seeing the variation in heat, yeah. So yeah, it was great again at range, zooming in, stepping in for shot placement, up to times 12, yeah, really good about getting in on your quarry, what you're trying to shoot. Okay, up onto clip 5, I had 3 row, and they were 180 meters away, feeding around and some stubble. Now, what was really apparent when you look at them, and I alluded to in the last clip, is when you look at the underside and the rear of the deer, you can see the heat difference, okay? As opposed to seeing just one heat source, a blob, you know, you're actually seeing the defined heat source. So you can see the whole thing about the animal and where, you know, if you can see the difference in the detail at 180 meters with a thermal on a deer, you know, it shows you where we've come from last year or previous years, where it's just been like, it's that blob, etc. Which this all comes in this whole sub 25 millikelvin. Now, when people will say, yeah, but you wouldn't shoot at that range, or you wouldn't do this, you wouldn't do that. People will shoot whatever range they feel comfortable at. These deer are 180 meters away. You can, as you see when we zoom in for shot placement, you know, you can get in on the deer, you can see a lot more. Yes, it gets pixelated, okay, but you've already established what it is. You know what it is anyway, as in you've been tracking it, you've been marking it, you've been observing it. And for me, you know, that ability to zoom in is just all about shot placement, okay? Because at the end of the day, if you're shooting deer, you're going to be shooting it during the day, or in that twilight hour. You're not going to be shooting at night time, so it's not a problem. So you would have your binders anyway, just sex it and you'll have fine detail. But for shot placement, absolutely bang on. And then we come on to clip 6, which you'll see there's some laid up. There's 3. There's a mother and two young roe, and they're in stubble, and they're just laid up. And essentially, I just sat watching them, and as you can see, her head with the XP. You know, I hang on it for a bit to show, and the XQ as well. We're just hanging on it so you can see. So a roe's head, you know, you're talking this big, and you're able to sit and look at that and hold on it. You know, at times, when I went to the times 12 mag, and you know, and times 8 on the XP, you know, it's not, I'm going to shoot a deer now, it's to show you that that's a heat source at 100+ meters, and what you can see and the difference. You'll notice from the XP stuff that the wood line in behind, you can clearly make out the wood and the detail in the wood. Now that wood is over 300 meters away, well over 300 meters away, and it's bordering nearly 4. But again, it's the capacity in the sensor that gives you all that detail, which is phenomenal. And then on 7, what we have is, because we've got some roe on stubble. Now this isn't about shooting, this is just so you can observe, and it's that detection range. But you can clearly see that there's 3 deer. There's actually a 4th deer. If you look at the left hand side of it, there's a 4th deer. So you've got 3 roe feeding on stubble at 320 meters, and so you've got all this happening, and you can see it clear as day. All right. Yes, because of the ground, you're not getting a full picture. I'm not taking a shot. It's all about seeing stuff and observing and seeing what's happening, so you can make your approach. But from a scope perspective, the XQ performed really well, considering that range. You know, you're talking. It was challenging even for the XP to watch the deer at 320 meters, roe deer feeding on stubble, and it absolutely nailed it. And then what I've got is to finish on is just tree line. I'm clearly a bit of a tree hugger, but it's for me, it's being able to see a tree line and a wood line and the detail that you get from it in the evening, because obviously the way the trees are processed and still doing you know, the growth and all the rest of it, you see the life in the trees, and actually it gives you that, I mean, minute level of temperature variation as opposed to a heated mass like a deer or a fox. So for me, that really is where you see the quality of the sensors coming out, which is why the XP clearly, when you look at the XP footage of that tree line, what you're getting is really, really top end quality. And the XQ is very good, but it's not the same as the XP. So what you're looking at there is, and that's really what I was trying to get at earlier on. When you look at functional use, for me, anyone that's doing vermin or deer control, you know, especially things like muntjac. I know there is a debate about using thermal for deer stalking, etc. Well, if people have got a job to do and they need to get on and do it, especially things like muntjac, etc. In wooden blocks. This XQ50 for that, and foxing, and any kind of vermin control, squirreling, rats, rabbits, you know, it is absolutely designed for that. So from a mid-range scope, as what they come as, this to me, especially with the LRF function, will not be beaten. Its functionality, the bit I mentioned about the focus, the ability to focus with your focus dial here, really simple movements, and LRF function, especially if you take in consideration you have this on a 2.2 LR or 17 HMR, something that you're going to have variation, where you have variation and you fall a shot between 50 and 70 and 30 meters. Your point of aim is different. This, you can obviously put your ranges in there, have them set. Yeah, so you're zeroed at whatever range you want to work at, from 20 to 70 to 100. Use your LRF, ping your quarry, change your setting by a flick of a button. Okay, so you're on the zero profile, the range that you want, and you're on. Okay, that could be on an air rifle, it could be on a 2GLR, it could be in a 308. It doesn't matter. You can literally, and the benefits of these scopes are, because you've got 5 different rifle settings, you can literally, I could have this on my 308 for deer stalking, okay, on my 243 for foxing, my 2.2 LR for rabbiting and rats and squirrels, my air rifle again for the same quarry. You know, it's literally, and in each setting is one shot zeroing. So you go on, just when I say one shot zeroing, I mean, if you then transfer that off onto your next rifle, you want to go put a quick check zero, you fire one shot into your target, and wherever it's slightly up, if it's not on center, okay, you literally just adjust it through the mechanism. It's really simple, and you're bang on, okay? But you're just going through the settings of 5 different rifles you can have, and you can move that amongst your different scope, amongst your different rifles for different purposes, but getting to use a top quality product, okay, for all your quarry. So I think I can't stress enough, as I have, about the functionality. It's quality, it's Pulsar, it's known, you know, it's a really good quality product. You know, this, for me, because the ×3 magnification has the edge on the XP50 PRO when it comes to foxing on your base mag, because generally I'll have it on 2, find my quarry, and then I'll flick into 4 or 8 dependent for my shot, for shot placement, okay? But it does give me a better field of view, okay? But the ×3, when you pick it up and you put it onto your quarry, your ×3 mag, and literally that's pretty much simple. At 100 meters, you're going with that and pulling the trigger, because it's got the quality there. And as you've seen from the other foxing videos, etc., the quality, you know, at 100 meters, yeah, it's really good, really good. Between 100 and 200, again, up there, to be challenged by anything, to be honest with you, and compete. It's when you start pushing it out beyond there, is when you start seeing the sensor, the difference between the XP and the XQ. That's where you're going to start seeing the difference, in my opinion, where I've noticed that your sensor in the XP clearly at range is where you really get your money's worth, okay? But someone who's shooting within that range, who wants, you know, good visibility, quick onto your quarry and be able to pull that trigger, you know, it's bang on there. It's bang on the money. Okay, so that's it from me. Scott Country International. Look at the website, and they've got all these scopes on sale, and you know, the team are there to answer any questions. So feel free, knock yourself out, give it a go. I hope you see that it shows. This is Danny from Scott Country National, out.